The boys are back in town, back in New Jersey after our little trip to Massachusetts to cover Combat FC 7. Watch the vlog if you haven't already. It was a really fun time. And watch the roadcast too. That was an underrated part of our trip. But in terms of this podcast, back to normal. We're going to talk some MMA. There was no UFC, but we were at Combat FC 7, which airs on UFC Fight Pass. So we're going to talk about that and our whole experience kind of covering it. But we had a fun time in Boston. Well, not even really just Boston, just Massachusetts in general. We got there on Thursday, left on Saturday, and obviously Friday night with the fights. But what was the trip like for you?
Yeah, I mean, for the trip, obviously, we obviously wish we could have made it to the weigh-ins and whatnot, but going up to Massachusetts for the first time and looking around Boston and getting to once again see the city out and about in the Celtics gear and stuff, being a part of that a little bit, so it was a lot of fun. I'm glad it happened, and then also another first time for me being at a pro MMA event and seeing all the action go down right in front of us. We had an awesome view. Obviously you go to the vlog and you'll see.
Going to be at another pro MMA event pretty soon. Hint, hint. Stay tuned to the end of the video for that. But I mean, I agree. Obviously, I've been to Massachusetts one other time pretty recently. So going back there, and I would say having like more free time to explore Boston and stuff like that definitely made it a lot more fun. I think that the fights were obviously really awesome. I mean, basically every single one of them was a finish besides one of the championship ones, as we'll get to.
I want to give a shout to the promotion as a whole and all that. That the production was cool and all that got everyone really excited and everybody in there was obviously ready for all the action. And then man, we got set up really nicely by Joe, Rick, Kyle. It's unfortunate Kyle wasn't there. We obviously would have loved to meet him, but
he's helped us a lot. Yeah, that's for sure.
Just obviously gotta give him the big shout. Combat FC 8 has been announced for September. We're obviously hoping that we can make it up there once again for that. Get to see Kyle there, meet some other people, get some even more content perhaps. So we'll just let those beans spill right now. So
yeah, let's hope. I mean, we have a lot of time to plan it. Obviously, their next event is September 13th, and the main event of that will be Jan Oliveira versus Sean Lally for the middleweight title. Jan Oliveira obviously won the middleweight title of Combat FC 6, but not in the way that he wanted to. It was because of an accidental eye poke from Ali Zebian, which basically got him DQ'd, which led to Jan winning the belt. And, not the way that anyone wants to win a title, so I'm sure that he's going to be going into this first defense really on a mission to prove something, and Sean Lally's going to try and beat him. So Combat FC 8, definitely going to be crazy. Combat FC 7 was pretty crazy, and let's honestly talk about it, because let's start with the main event, Ashik Ajim versus John Douma. And this fight was not even really a competition, which shocked me, because John Douma was obviously the Combat FC bantamweight champion, had fought in Bellator, he's had a few nice wins, and he's just really good all around. But Ashik Ajim, he looked great in this fight. His striking was so technical and precise. It seemed like every punch he threw was landing in that first round. And John Douma's chin, by the way, got to give him credit for that, because some of those shots that Ajim was hitting him with at first, I think those should have put him out, and Douma was still coming forward, which I thought was kind of crazy. But obviously Ajim gets the job done in the first round via knockout. Just an incredible performance. Now he's the champ. He says, obviously unless he gets a call from one of the higher promotions like UFC, PFL, stuff like that, he wants to stick around and defend his title. But before we kind of get to that, what did you think of Ajim's win here?
Yeah, I think there was more pressure on Ashik Ajim to control the center anyways from the jump. Obviously the challenger fighting for the title. Just not let Douma, he's obviously been able to carry with him so well throughout his pro career as a grappler, and win via submission that way. And even on the feet too, seemed like John Duma's only been getting better as a striker as well. But once again, I think it's just a matter of Ajim just coming in with a game plan, executing it to a T, and yeah, just once again taking center stage, landing where he needed to, and yeah, there wasn't much else that John Douma could really do, to be honest, besides rely on his chin and take those shots. So
yeah. And like, it's funny because first round finishes like this, like when we're sitting here on the podcast, like it's more exciting, but in a way it's almost hard to talk about because it's like, oh, well, what can you really take from the fight besides that Ajim is an insanely good striker and he's got clear power, and Douma obviously his chin, but not much of a fight to really break down, just an insane finish by a good fighter in Ajim, and now he takes that Combat FC title from John Douma, wants to defend it, which is really awesome. I mean, I think he's an exciting guy for that promotion to continue having as long as he'll be there until he maybe gets a call from one of the bigger promotions. But just really, honestly, that was such a great ending to a really fun card. And
a fitting ending to a card that had all finishes.
Yeah, and to move on to another title fight finish, Carlos Lozoya finished Fiordov's Khasanov. And that one, I would say this one was probably the most high-level fight that we saw on, like, the ground. Because, in the first round, Fiordov's obviously knocks Carlos down for a second.
It wasn't, so like you just mentioned with how these first-round finishes, they're so exciting and whatnot, but then when you have to come on and talk about it, there's only obviously so much you can really say. But for this fight, it didn't last very long either, but I feel like there was still like a lot that happened between the both of them in terms of scrambling situations on the ground and all that, because both guys are clearly very very talented, skilled, capable grapplers, and I think that really showed. And then in the beginning to start, I mentioned in our preview when we made the announcement talking about these fights how I feel like Khasanov would be better off not trying to fail out Carlos Lozoya and pressuring on the front foot early, and it seemed like that's what actually ended up happening, and he rattled Lozoya quite a bit in that first round. But Lozoya's a tough dude, man. I think that's definitely what I gathered from watching this fight right in the flesh in person, that Lozoya can take it, and he can give it that much harder. And
military vet though too. Respect. Happy Memorial Day, by the way. That's when we're recording this.
Yeah.
But I definitely agree. I mean, that shot that Fiordov's hit him with in the first round was such a big shot. So the fact that he not only came back from that, but I remember when we were sitting there talking about it, Lozoya ends up getting on top and ends the round pretty much just raining down ground and pound on Fiordov's. Yeah. And because of that, like, we were like, that's a tough round to score. Like, usually when someone gets knocked down, it's like, oh, well, you kind of have to give it to that guy. But Lozoya ended the round in such a dominant position that it actually made it a lot closer than it maybe would have been otherwise. And then the second round, the scrambles were even more fun. And then obviously Lozoya got the better of it and got the finish.
Lozoya getting to, head to the corner. I'm sure his coaches was telling him, like, just how you ended that first round is how you got to start the second round. And that's definitely what happened. So
he seemed to be a lot more aggressive with his wrestling in that second round. Like, it seemed like in the first round he maybe wasn't expecting Fiordov's to come out like as aggressively as he did. But in round two, it seemed like Lozoya was like, okay, I know this guy's going to probably start quick, so I need to do the same thing. And right when he did that, seemed like it was really a game changer. And it shows a lot about his fight IQ, obviously. Yeah. Making that adjustment within one round and then finishes the fight in the second round and wins the Combat FC flyweight title. I just thought it was a really impressive performance. I mean, he had crucifix on Fiordov's near the end there. Always love seeing that. Like, you know me, I'm one of those MMA fans who really just wants to see just pure awesome violence, which might be crazy. Yeah, dude. But I mean,
you already know that these guys they're definitely looking to put on a show in their own unique standout way, and obviously get their hand raised at the end. And I think really all these title fights did an awesome job of showing that. And yeah, you gotta give credit once again. When like I was saying in the preview, Lozoya strikes me as a guy who knows like the path he's on and what he wants in the future. Now he's got the belt. He wants to defend it, and he seems like a guy that's gonna just continue to stay active and just keep racking up these fights. And
I want to say this, and it's not really particularly related to Lozoya, more so like the crucifix that he had for Dobson, but like I was just talking about being an MMA fan who just loves violence, and like to MMA fans that sounds so normal, but to the real world that probably sounds insane. It's like, yeah, I just love watching people beat the shit out of each other, but it really just shows you the difference between like types of people.
Dude. It's these guys' livelihood at the end of the day. They know that they've got bigger places to go and stuff, and once again, like they wanna keep building that name. Once again, like I was saying, like give us as fans, just those moments that we'll never forget and stuff. And once again, I think these 3 title fights did a great job of that.
Yeah, exactly, man. And to get to the 3rd title fight, well, technically the 1st on the card, but you guys know how we do it. We go from the main event down. But for the Combat FC featherweight title, I mean, dude, Damian Nelson dominated Jerry Meuse on the feet with just super slick kickboxing. Obviously, an unfortunate ending. Nelson accidentally kneed Meuse while he was down in round 5. Just seemed like one of those adrenaline type of moments where he just was trying to go for the finish. And the fight ended after that because Meuse couldn't continue. And so I believe the way that it works is that if the ref deems the shot unintentional, then they can go to the scorecards. I remember we were like confused in the moment because at first I was like, I've never seen a guy get hit with an illegal shot and then they go to the scorecards still. But I believe it's because the ref said it was accidental. And that's what ended up leading for Nelson to get the decision 49-45. And, this was the fight we were looking forward to the most. Jerry Meuse, really fun guy. I think, honestly, outside of the cage, his walkout might have been my favorite moment of the night. And then in the cage, Damian Nelson with his kickboxing just looked so incredible. The right hand was there the whole time. Just, what did you think of that insane performance by the new champion, Damian Nelson?
Yeah, dude. Then definitely also listening to your interview with him too. The guy he mentioned he was locked in from the whole way through because this fight was originally supposed to happen at Combat FC 6, right?
Yes,
and
it
then
was.
So it fell through, and obviously both guys gotta just train even more and get ready. And just with the Damien, like they don't call him Dynamite for nothing, man. The guy is super explosive. Maybe not the strongest guy, but man, he's super technical, he's super precise with his strikes, and in this fight, I mean, his punches were just landing like powerfully anyways. And Jerry Meuse was definitely able to weather that storm. I think obviously, Jerry Meuse getting these quick finishes so far he's been able to get, and having the undefeated record coming in this fight, obviously probably not so used to having his back against the wall and having to weather the storm like that, but he did an awesome job. And clearly, like, there was plenty of instances where he was looking for the twister, but Damien, like, obviously he came in prepared and did a great job of scouting clearly. And Damien just fought his fight the whole way through. The illegal knee, like, it is what it is. Like, in a way, it's like I think there are some promotions that do allow knees to a grounded opponent, but Combat FC is not one of them. So, obviously that was unfortunate. You would have liked to see the fight go the entire way, just regularly, or just an actual finish. But like Damien was still dominating the fight throughout the whole way, still rightfully got the belt in his hands. So.
We should have a conversation about this because I'm actually curious of what your thoughts are. I don't know if we've ever actually talked about this on the podcast, but the knee to the head of a grounded opponent rule. I don't know about you, but I personally think they should be legal. I don't see why they're not. I think a kick to the head on the feet is probably just as bad for you as like a knee on the ground. I mean, obviously I don't know if there's a way of quantifying that, But I think that MMA is so inherently dangerous anyway that knees to the head of a grounded opponent isn't the craziest thing. I mean, one championship, they're legal, and we saw Demetrius Johnson get hit with one
Yeah.
in one of his title fights, and he lost because of that. And, you know, that, like, he's fine. Like, it wasn't like a crazy moment. Like, I think that I think that it should honestly be a legal move. I don't know if you agree with that or not. I don't understand if you don't, because some people, like, you know, I guess there's lines, but if you can elbow a guy on the ground and cut him up like you can, what's the difference of kneeing him once or twice and finishing the fight? Like, you get what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not really entirely sure, to be honest. Yeah, honestly, I would tend to agree. I mean, I guess for this situation, it definitely seemed like, once again, like, there wasn't much because Jerry was on his knees, and then that's when Damian gave the knee to him, and I mean, it was kind of just there where Jerry Meuse is just is in just such a perilous position already that the only thing Damian really can do is give you that knee, to be honest. Otherwise, he'd have to start like striking to the back of the head and stuff. So, yeah,
You have to go for like a weird uppercut. I mean, I really think it was adrenaline because at that point it was the 5th round. Muse was already kind of beat up pretty bad, and it looked like Nelson could finish the fight. But like I said, I just think it was one of those things where it was like you kind of just see a finish coming and you throw the knee thinking that he might pop back up to his feet real quick to try and stay in the fight, and obviously he didn't. And, you know,
Yeah.
it was an unfortunate way to end, but either way, Nelson's performance was just truly dominant. I'm glad he won because he did deserve to win. That's how I felt.
I think it's more or less just a thing of, because it is mixed martial arts, and there are, like, I don't want to say, like, certain rules are loose and stuff, but, the guys, I think, are able to still find ways to bend those rules in certain kind of ways and like get away with it and stuff.
I always think the cheekiest thing that people do in MMA is when they're on the ground, they'll grab inside of the glove, which is illegal. I think that's like the most little like cheeky sneak cheating move that people do, and grabbing the fence, but that's a little harder to get away with. But
it comes. No, I mean, I would say like it comes down to an IQ thing at the end of the day, but also like you just saying, the adrenaline, the instinct and whatnot, like, I think that's really all it like comes down to and stuff. Like, obviously Damian knew he was well in control of the fight. He was not that far away from completing the round and getting the decision victory anyway. So
I think he just wanted to finish him, and he just didn't have the thought in the moment. And I'm sure he'll remember this in the future because I mean he got lucky in a way that he got the win because imagine if he dominated that whole fight and then they called it a no contest or a DQ loss. Like, that would have just been so unfortunate after the performance that he put on. So I'm very glad that they gave Damian the win at the end of the day.
Yeah, both guys once again coming in. I know we were super excited for this fight. Arguably the most one of the most underrated fights on the card, and both guys just once again getting to know a little bit more about them and stuff. Wish I got to talk to Jerry beforehand, but once again, like, I think he seems like an awesome dude. Very exciting fighter regardless, and then perhaps one day we'll see. But I think this fight still delivered.
Yeah, and as the whole card did. I mean, obviously we got to see Damian after the fight too, which was kind of cool. That was like a chance occurrence, and we got to congratulate him. That was cool. So hopefully we'll be able to get Damian on the pod soon too. And Jerry Meuse seems like a really cool guy as well. Obviously wouldn't mind having him on the pod either. So stay tuned for that in the future. But to move on to the one other fight on here that we wanted to talk about, Nick Fiore versus Gustavo Coelho Franca. That was just an exceptional performance from Nick Fiore, and he really looked good, like, in all aspects of MMA. But we know him as a grappler. His jiu-jitsu is phenomenal, and that really showed in this fight. I mean, the moment that this fight got on the ground, it was so one-sided. Fiore took Gustavo's back so quickly and just yeah, the ground and pound in that first round was just what ended it, and it was just so brutal. But I was honestly really excited for this fight. Almost like, I would say pretty much just as much as the title fights, because, Fiore, for those who don't know, has been in the UFC. He did go 0-2, but he lost 2 decisions, one to Chase Hooper and one to Meuse Rebecki. So it's not like he was fighting slouches, and he's undefeated outside of the UFC.
And coming here, he's fighting another. He's in general just a very experienced guy already.
Yeah, I think they say he'd been fighting since 2003. So that's kind of wild. This was obviously his retirement fight in a way. So.
Yeah, a guy who's obviously also well versed in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and once again, kind of like with the Sheik Ajim and John Douma, this fight ending in a quick fashion, one-sided fashion. Like Nick came in with a game plan, executed it to a T, and
he seems like the type of guy who truly is just all business. Like, some of the people in Combat FC, I noticed, like, they had like these, really, they wanted to like make a statement in their post-fight interviews, but like Nick Fiore, very respectful, just seems like he wants to get in there, do what he can do to the best of his ability, and get the win. And he's just solely focused
honestly,
on that.
Even just speaking from in the press conference too, because he was a late add to that press conference, and like once he got in the room, it honestly, like, you can, in a way, it did like feel like, oh, like, yeah, like this guy has legit UFC experience, and he's obviously looking to get back there. He definitely has plenty of time to do so, and so I could, again, ask him about afterwards if he would want to chase the belt for Combat FC in the lightweight division, and he was obviously very open with. So I think he's super locked in all the way. Just another guy I think who's definitely looking to stay active and get that call again one day.
Well, I mean, after a first round TKO at Combat FC 7, could we see Nick Fiore get a title shot at Combat FC 8? I'd love to see it. I'm sure you would, man. Too. Yeah. Exactly. So, like we said, Combat FC 8 will take place on September 13th. We have a lot of time to plan it, so we'll hope we'll be able to get down there and cover that for you guys. But besides that, there's just one other thing that I wanted to kind of cover before we leave the pod today, and that was Ronda Rousey's recent comments about MMA media. I don't know. Usually I've tried to like kind of ignore this stuff as of late because people try to like blow it out of proportion or twist what she said, and I really don't want to try and do that. But I was just, when I read these quotes that I'm about to talk about, it just kind of struck me, and I wanted to say my thoughts on it. Obviously, I'll allow you to say what you think too. But she said that she, quote, feels really vilified by MMA media, and she doesn't feel like she'd be welcome if she was at a UFC event, and like she feels like if they showed her on the screen, she'd be booed by the fans. And to start off, like, I just kind of want to say I feel like what she says about the media is a bit unfair, because my view is that the media will will put out headlines about quotes that she said. Maybe they don't tell the full story. Some of them do, but that's just the nature of what it is nowadays, especially with social media. But I think it is a little bit unfair to say that the media is vilifying her, because from what I've seen, when it comes to MMA Junkie or ESPN, they tend to give her all the respect she deserves. And I think she deserves so much respect. I know she gets a lot of flack from the fans, which I think is kind of what she's referring to more so than the media, because the way that I see it is the media will put out her quotes and then she'll get a ton of hate in the comments from the fans. That's not really the media's fault. Like, she said what she said. Like, she says what she says. I don't want to say she's bringing it on herself, but at the same time, I think it's unfair to say that it's the media's fault for covering a fighter who is obviously so influential in the sport. And I do just want to say this, like, I'm not trying to bash Ronda Rousey at all. I really don't want to be doing that. I think that she's a true pioneer of MMA. I think that she's a pioneer in women's sports in general. I mean, I think a lot of the people that we've seen fighting nowadays basically grew up with Ronda Rousey, and she inspired so many great female fighters to get into the sport. And, I don't think that anyone thinks she's a fraud. That was something else that she was saying, that the media has kind of said that she wasn't as good as she maybe thought she was at the time. And I think she was as good as she thinks she is. I just think it was a different era. She fought in the mid-2010s. The sport's evolved so much since then. And the thing is, like, it's just the truth. She wasn't a phenomenal striker. She was really great at that one thing, and that was judo. And she had good grappling around it too with her submissions and jiu-jitsu. And I just think that the game kind of caught up with her. That doesn't mean she's a fraud. It just means the game's evolved. And, fans will say what they want to say. I know fans don't really like Ronda Rousey that much. And, whether it be because of some of the things that she says as of late or even like after she lost, I remember people were kind of giving her crap for how she took those losses. But at the same time, this is a woman who's competed at the highest levels and she's not used to losing. Like, you hear different fighters all the time talk about how hard it is to take a loss in MMA and what that does to your psyche. And for everyone else, it feels like they respect them. But when Ronda Rousey says these types of things, it feels like she just gets hate from all the fans. And I think that's super unfair. But at the same time, for her to blame that on the media, I don't really think that that's fair. Because if she says something, she's a big name in the sport, even now that she's retired. The media is going to report something if she says it. So I don't think it's fair for her to put that blame on the media. I think that if anything, she should be mad at the fans. I do think it's kind of sad that she feels unwelcome at UFC events, not because I think that she's wrong, because I do think fans kind of give her an unfair, I guess, perspective. But I more so mean it like it's sad that one of the greatest fighters in the history of this sport who's done so much for it and for its popularity even, I think it's sad that she doesn't feel like she's welcome at a UFC event. And I think that fans could do better at making her feel as respected as she should be. But that's my piece. I want to open the floor to you. Obviously, what do you think of all this stuff lately with Ronda Rousey?
Maybe it just comes off as something as maybe some sign of like arrogance that it comes off to fans that because of how she handles losses and stuff, and like maybe people feel like she ran away from certain fights in the future and stuff. Something like, because for instance,
but like, not to cut you off, in a way though, did she? Because like she fought Amanda Nunes. Like, I don't know who else. I mean, I can't even really think of another person who I would have wanted to see her fight. Like, it's not like she ran away from the best of the best. Because yes, she got destroyed by Amanda Nunes, but she fought her. Like, sorry, I didn't want to cut you. I'll let you talk, and then I'll kind of like say. I just wanted to bring that up, though.
No, yeah, I get it, and what I was trying to get is like something was like also strange is she crossed over to WWE and wasn't received well there too either. And like now she's just in this spot where like she feels like she can't go like anywhere pretty much within the fighting verse, and it's like kind of, it really does like maybe it is something a little bit in her head, like, because once again I quote her, like she's talking about how she doesn't actually read into it, but she still feels like she's receiving all this negativity and stuff. So maybe she is maybe a little in over her head, but I mean, yeah, like I guess. I guess maybe it's a matter of, because she does say a lot and stuff, and does tend to like kind of like, I guess, put herself into certain corners and stuff, maybe put her own foot in her mouth and whatnot. At the end of the day, like, she is already one of the most decorated fighters of all time. She's a pioneer of the sport. Her accolades and her legacy and all of that, her record, all of that, it all already speaks for itself. So I think it is also a matter of, because it's such a different time now, it's such a different era, and there's so many just newer fans into the sport that like I've said in the past, but with a sport like just combat sports in general, like you're pretty much always looking forward. When we come on here to recap fights and stuff, we do obviously a very good job of doing that and then breaking down what happened, but we don't waste much time either in talking about what's next and all that, because it does just keep moving. It is a revolving door, but you simply, like, the history is also like just as important because you can't talk about what's gonna happen next without what already happened. So then yeah, like history's history pretty much. You can't really, I guess you can't really like find ways to like bend it and stuff. Um, Unless like obviously something comes out and then there's like a whole scandal or whatever. But that's as far as I know, that none of that's ever happened with Ronda Rousey. So I think that's just a thing of people are just newer. They know who Ronda Rousey is, obviously, because of how big the name is, and like obviously knowing that she did fight in the UFC in the earlier days and whatnot when women's MMA was still trying to get off the ground. But
I mean, she's the reason
yeah,
why women's MMA exists in the UFC. Dana White never wanted female fights in the UFC until he saw Ronda Rousey in Strikeforce. Like, all of these amazing female fighters that we've seen watching like nowadays in the UFC are only here because of what Ronda Rousey has done. And like, I do agree with what you're saying, that I think fans sometimes think of her quotes as like arrogant or bitter. But also in a way, like, I kind of understand where she's coming from because she gets so much hate from the fans. The only thing I really disagree with her on is her hate towards the media, because I think that's unfair. I don't think the media has given her a bad rap at all. Like, I don't know if she maybe throws everybody like into that MMA media fold, because I know other maybe like former fighters who have like podcasts and stuff have criticized her and things like that, and maybe fans with podcasts kind of like us, but obviously I think we do a good job at kind of keeping it down the middle. And like Ronda Rousey, like she was never really like my favorite fighter of all time, but I'd be crazy not to admit that she's didn't have one of the most dominant runs that we've seen by a women's MMA champion. And her judo was outstanding. Like, her ground game, people feared that. Yeah. Like, Joe Rogan in the past was talking about her fighting Floyd Mayweather. Like, that's crazy to even think about. It's just, I think that she's so important to this sport, and I wish that she did get the love and respect that she deserves, because when she was fighting, it was always there. But it seemed like ever since those losses, the fans kind of turned on her. Whether you want to blame her for that or you don't, I guess that's up for debate. But at the same time, fans do disrespect her all the time, and I just can't agree with people who say that she wasn't as good as she seemed at the time or things like that, because like we've said a bunch of times, this game is a revolving door, and people are going to get better over time. It's been almost a decade since Ronda lost her title at this point. So the game has obviously moved forward quite a bit, and Amanda Nunes had such a crazy run herself that it makes Ronda Rousey maybe look a little weaker, especially considering that they fought and Nunes basically wiped the floor with her. But, people who don't understand really should just go back and watch all of those title fights that Ronda Rousey had, just to see how easily she was winning those fights. Like, I remember the Kat Zingano one specifically. I think it was UFC 184. Could be wrong about the exact number, but that was seen as like this huge fight. Kat Zingano, this awesome wrestler and grappler, she's going to be the one who's going to test Ronda Rousey. She rushes forward. Ronda Rousey literally hip tosses her and submits her in, I want to say, 14 or 15 seconds. Like, she was the best for quite a long time. So it just, like I said, it sucks that she doesn't get that love and respect from MMA fans, because she really is one of the most influential MMA fighters in history, and I think she's done a lot for female sports in general. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that, because I did think it was unfair that she was saying that the media gives her a bad rap, because I truly don't think that they do. I think that she just hears the noise from the fans that may be a result of that media coverage. But yeah, it's just a shame. But I doubt she'll ever see this, but just coming from me, I think Ronda Rousey's amazing. I think she's one of, the best female fighters of all time. She's one of the most important fighters of all time, just considering her impact on the sport. And, I just wish people respected her more. That's really where I want to leave it. But to move on to our announcement for next weekend, this should be fun. So I said that in the beginning that you would be going to another pro MMA event very soon.
Yep, sure,
and that is
man.
because we are both going to UFC 302 in Newark and all of the stuff leading up to it. We're going to do another vlog for you guys, and I'm so excited for that. You know, I've been to different like UFC stuff in the past, but never a huge pay-per-view, and this will obviously be your first UFC event. Just how excited are you for this, man?
Yeah, dude. Like pretty much the second it was announced that they were gonna come to Newark. What was it? It was right after UFC 300.
Think so,
And
yeah.
obviously just reeling off the historic greatness of that card. You know, we teased it at the end of the pod, like, you know, UFC 302 is coming to Newark. Then we gotta go to it. Yeah, man. I seriously like. You know, obviously at the time is like, you know, we'll see and whatnot when we get closer. But you know, man, like definitely like just and obviously just knowing that we have the Combat FC opportunity right here. Like the UFC's coming to New Jersey for a huge pay-per-view. The lightweight title is being defended. Number one pound for pound, Islam Makhachev taking on a legend like Dustin Poirier. I mean, there's just, you know, yeah, the secret juice is going to be coming out in the form of Paulo Costa and the co-main going against Sean Strickland. Like, definitely, you know, definitely found a way to make it happen. And looking at, you know, just reasonable seats and stuff that would give us, like, that nice view of all the action and whatnot. And then we got it, man. So, yeah, section 118, row 10, that's where we're going to be posted up.
Honestly, any like people who watch us who are, you know, from here or going to the fights,
yeah, that's
say what's up. Like,
Yeah.
come see us. We're always willing to
Yeah,
meet people.
yeah, we will
So-
be out and about for sure. This week upcoming, we got there's the press conferences on Thursday. There's the weigh-ins on Friday, and then the card itself on Saturday. And we're
Also
gonna-
on Friday, Ariel Hawani's
That-
Roadshow. We're going to go to
that's
that.
right, yeah.
Might have some surprises there. We'll see.
Yeah,
Not sure
our
yet.
guy
But
Ariel,
stay tuned.
Yeah, our guy Ariel. Hopefully, we're gonna get to speak with him on stuff a little, you know, New York Rick and all that. Yeah, it's yeah, man. Once again, it's the nice opportunity that's here for us, and definitely we just want to make the most of it, get some more content and stuff, and just keep gaining these experiences. So.
Yeah. So stay tuned for another vlog. We're going to vlog our whole weekend experience. Obviously, this one's a little different because Combat FC, we're going there like as media. This is just going to be us as fans, to be clear. But it's still going to be a really fun time for the channel. The first time we'll be vlogging any really like actual UFC pay-per-view for the Hurt Handbook. So I'm really looking forward to it, man.
Stay tuned, everybody.
Yeah, so obviously we'll still do the pay-per-view recap like we normally do. That'll come out on Tuesday. I'm going to try, like I did this time, to get the vlog out on that Sunday. But this one I feel like might go to Monday just because it's probably going to be more footage to edit because it's 3 days instead of 2.
Yeah.
But yeah, so stay tuned for that. Obviously, as it gets closer, I'll actually say what day it's going to come out. But, you know, Sunday or Monday, expect the vlog. Tuesday, expect the THH episode recapping the pay-per-view. And,
it's going to be crazy, man.
Oh, yeah, I'm super excited. So stay tuned for all that, guys. Thank you for tuning into all of our stuff, and see y'all.
Feel just like a superstar. Doing all these drugs, I don't think I'm gonna see tomorrow. Living fast, brand new dash up in a foreign car. It's the type of shit that you be doing when you going hard.